Another symptom of Kyle Shanahan having too much on his plate, attention to detail. Like, he's very good, or has been very good at the details of X's and O's. But winning football games, there's so many more details, as Bill Belichick has proven. I mean, he's all over those details to the point that people think he's cheating because he's focused on stuff that's way far away from the field. A lot of the time, like it's war. Like there's no boundaries here. How do you think Kyle has done on those types of details?
Look, so it's really difficult to comment on something like this because we don't get to see the practices. We don't know what's getting coached, what's not getting coached. But there's one thing that's clear after watching Kyle Shanahan coach the 49ers for 5 years, right? They are a bad situational football team. In 2017, we thought they were a bad situational football team because they were starting all young players and they were trying to implement a system and all of that. That's why they were the greatest 1-9 team in the history of the NFL, the greatest
True.
0-9 team in the history of the NFL because
Yeah.
they found ways to lose games. Here we are in 2021, and it's 4 years. The system has been implemented. There's consistency with coaches. There's consistency with system, and this team still finds ways to beat itself.
Yep.
It's still a bad team situationally. And it's difficult to say whether Kyle Shanahan is coaching these things or not. But the one thing that's clear is that they're a bad situational football team. And I go back to the one example that kind of eats at my craw is Kyle Shanahan does his NBC Bay Area interview every Saturday, right? And the Saturday before the Colts game, everybody knew that the weather was going to be bad. I think it was Mayoka or Greg Papa who interviewed him. One of the two, they asked him, did you guys practice with the wet football all week? And he said, no, I don't believe in practicing with the wet football. I think it gets into guys' head, blah, blah, blah. Look, I don't know if practicing with the wet football is beneficial or not before that football game. But all I know,
All we know is the results.
right? All we know is the results. And the Niners were Jimmy
More
Garoppolo didn't
phased
throw
by
the
the
ball as well as
water.
Carson Wentz in that game, who said he
Yeah.
practiced extensively with the wet
That
football.
was a
Bill
dumb
Belichick,
team from the Midwest. They were the ones that should have been
right?
phased by
And
it.
Bill Belichick is notorious for preparing for stuff like this in days in advance, and it's always written about and it's talked about in him in terms of greatness. And again, we can't say any of these things for sure, but all I know is that this team is bad situationally, and there's a detail that Kyle Shanahan says he knows about, but he didn't care enough to coach or implement or practice that way. Again, I don't know if that's why the 49ers lost that game. All I know is that they keep beating themselves and they're a bad team situationally. And I have to look at that example and say, why are they never prepared?
I got another example. This last week against the Cardinals, all week, people in the defense said, we were asking them, like, so it's kind of tough, right? Where you don't really know which quarterback to prepare for. It's kind of, that's a standard question, boilerplate. To a man on this team, they're like, oh, we're preparing for Kyler Murray. We're preparing for Kyler Murray. Like, come on. We're the 49ers. We're really good. They're not going to roll out their backup quarterback against us. Kyler's going to limp out there because we played him so tough in Arizona. They have to play Kyler. Nope. They played Colt. And I think the Niners really weren't prepared for that. Like, schematically, I mean, more like emotionally. What happens when the backup quarterbacks comes out? How do we make sure we don't let down? Because they did. They freaking did. Joe Staley said they did. They did.
And you know what the more frustrating thing is after the game, right? And I appreciate Kyle Shanahan's honesty. He was like, oh, I didn't expect there to be a letdown. But then I feel like, do you not have a good feel for the pulse of your team? Because they came out flat in that football game. They came out flat. I mean, I wouldn't say they came out flat in terms of the sense like they looked like the Cardinals ready to walk over them. They came out flat in the sense that they were not ready to execute everything every detail correctly from day one, from play one, right? You started off, you go 3 and out, they go 3 and out, and then you have George Kittle, who hasn't practiced in 4 weeks, and he's jumping into 2 defenders holding the ball out, and he fumbles. Okay, then Arizona, you spot them 7 points, right? Because Arizona's screen game, which was actually quite good yesterday or on Sunday, you come back. It was just a bunch of mental errors after mental errors, which, again, do you not have a feel for the pulse of your team because you thought they were ready to play? They clearly weren't.